Welcome, welcome to my lovely IHP community and the 5D collective. To those who are new, we had our first couple episodes, our shorts. We also have our 5D Mystic Messages live on Spotify. Inner child, adult, open hearted, spontaneous mystics and peeps are real in relationships. I did read to you some of what was read in the episode on YouTube. Real relationships happen with inner child, adult, open hearted, spontaneous mystics and peeps 5D mentor. So you might hear some of that, but you get some stories alongside explanations. And the gist of it is that inner child, adult, open hearted, spontaneous 5D mystics and people are real in relationships, and they speak truths with integrity because they have had and have the courage. We're going to use some of my lovely tarot decks. I got some new ones to have emotional release in healthy ways, which we're going to look at all of these, by the way, and to therefore bring to us the battle that they had within, that inner conflict, to us meaning when they're being real, but to themselves also resolution. So their whole self, they're grown up, inner child, adult. Okay, so inner child, adult are the words we use here because they don't have a charged any states. No, they break the chains of all that which is self-limiting beliefs, but really all that is from trauma stuff. So we don't have an adaptive child. We don't have people who are dysregulated. We have people who are non-traumatized because they can self-regulate in their ventral energy by themselves, or they're working with a therapist to be that, and therefore we're getting an authentic person who won't be in a relationship with friends, lovers, anyone with maladaptive patterns of behavior, drugging, drinking, fucking, and or just anything that's really not healthy. Or, again, their Cusco attitude and or adaptive child part behavior, which is the Cusco attitude. So I share with you a bit of my facade friend's story. Remember, the seed is you. Enlightenment is within every person. If you don't believe in mystic stuff, that's fine with me because it's really about you owning the sense of self so you can become your restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating person. So that is the version of those of us who have the courage. It's not courage in heroes and villains. That's only the ignorant, non-bilaterally integrated brain people who use that, and they are not in any way, shape, or form aware of something called all you need is love. They also don't want it. So love is the greatest of successes on the path to prosperity. Who can fully experience abundance without it? You can't embody fullness in the absence of a securely attached whole self. So it is when you will be generous from spirit, not in I'm so generous. So when my facade friend came back around, I didn't hold it over his head. What he did, I had a very serious conversation with him, which you all know the story is surrendering to the now. Those of us who have blind faith simply means we know no thing is wasted. But it's also why we cherish every single one of those Oversoul members, so we may ensure not to waste any of that precious 24 hours, because I could die right now. So my facade friend is the reason why I don't address any facade people at all. And as always, there's no sign. I'm going to spell this one out. The fancy lady, she makes my point, like any other teenager that I met and any person who is an insecure individual. They are simply looking for a way to feel reassured in moments of upset. So they're not really there because they cherish the depths of who you are. They're there because you are a secure connection, which is okay because, again, it's hard for some people to do life. That's it. So they don't know how to do life easy because they don't go and get reparented with a good therapist. Which is why don't waste your time in a romantic relationship with somebody who doesn't want to know how to self-regulate in their ventral energy. That's also the gist of today's messages, because they will only be dead ends that will fizzle out with their distressed body and actively make no sense as they continue to say, I found it hard to believe. Now, first is a life and implicit memory, and I don't want to love. I want to shame people and all that other bullshit. So they get to be those who, when the destroyer comes around, like my facade friend, the tower moments, yes, they don't actively grow up. They just make up a bunch of stories and they hang out with the ones who are distorted feminines. And so they go buy each other golden rings and they do gender stereotypes and all that bullshit stuff, which is really unimpressive. But again, if they ever want, they can get to Terry Real or Patrick Jehan. So in the meantime, our courage is actual courage. Why? Because the child of every person who did go through trauma was brave. Then the teenager that becomes a grown-up whose maladaptive patterns, nightmare stories cover YouTube and do everything and anything to twist words in ways that are completely unfascinating. I mean, it's nothing impressive to smart brains. Okay, so they don't have courage. They got a protective mode, which makes their brain dumb down, because that's what anger does. It dumbs you down since it's saturating the hippocampus with cortisol. And since, as Russell Coates in the book on managing anger, which I can't wait to finish reading, points out, the minute you're in your 3-year-old is how I'm going to address it, because Robert Sapolsky determined, come on in, no free will. But really, because Stephen Porges, come on in, you're only 3 nervous systems. Whatever you begin talking, it began at the age of 2. And so really, you already began life with shame, blame, fault, revenge. The only reason you feel life is hard and nightmares is all over the place because you won't heal it to get your inner child alive. So I'm meeting a distorted shame button of a person who doesn't even know half of who they could be, because their pause self is full of nightmares and life is hard because they're not reparenting their inner child and getting out of rigid thinking, black and white thinking, monstrous thinking, suffering thinking, and feeling. Okay, so the straightforward equation is, I'm not laughing because it's funny, is that either you're going to be a person who knows how to leave alone the ones who continue that path, or you're not. But obviously, if you're here, and I know I was going somewhere with the courage. Yeah, courage is when you can tell me the truth in my face, unlike my facade friend who doesn't still know how to tell me the truth, like anybody else who's fearing abandonment, rejection, injustice, unfair, da 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 da, and so on and so forth. And so while there's bountiful of smart scientists out there, more than 30 years they've been doing what they're doing, I still find that the masses, good portion, are like my facade friend. They just have a bunch of stories for you. And when you don't want to have self-compassion and you don't realize why, at this point, it's more like, okay, well, keep on using the ego's narratives alongside all the 4D, 3D, because we're not going to tell you what's true. You already know what's true. Cusco, what's up? So people who are facades, they're in their biological rudeness. And Russell Coates, what he was saying is that anger, and when somebody is assuming things, leads you to use generalizations, stereotypes, and all of yesterday's news. So your past, your childhood, those ancient stories you told yourself, these very much superhero, supervillain, is just such a limited way. Okay, so a person who really, really is smart at this point in our era, they're like, I'm going to go get therapy if I'm not having more fun when I wake up in the morning. Not going to just do yoga, mindfulness, meditate. No, I'm going to go do therapy if I notice that I'm not learning how to self-regulate in my ventral energy, because it will be clear if you still feel life hard, if you feel your relationships are hard, if you feel like talking and speaking up is hard. When you hear somebody saying, I told them, what are you doing? Trauma dumping here. Da, 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 da. Wow, and you're a healer. What are you healing? Yourself? You don't seem to have been healing anyone, but you might have a group that likes to copy you, mean girl, with the 12-karat golden ring and emperors and empresses all together. Yeah, that's great. Go have fun, facades. I love when I meet facades. No, I don't. They're actually uninteresting, because they're all basically pretending to be cool. And it's only cool when you actively are a person who's sweet, kind, and lovable, and you use the imagination of your brain to use logic, read, discernment, and no, it's not a fairy tale out there in the world, but it's also not hard or evil or unfair. Oh, my colleagues are against me. Every time I hear a teenager, I'm like, what the heck? Don't they know how else to use their time except to do this? And it's not about gossiping being good or bad. It's just actively they're using petty time, petty energy, small of it, but they're busy. And that's why it's okay. Robert Sapolsky says we don't have free will. So I'm going to say, well, I guess we only have a group that are going to be here. Come on over, our 5D collective, because really, why would we hang out with the people who don't know how to come and bring it all in? Science and spirituality is really fun. So I bring it, spirituality, sciences. I'm a pseudoscience lady, but basically you stop hiding and you show up and let yourself be seen when you can be a person who says, yeah, I'm afraid to be vulnerable. So fear, vulnerability, growth. You have the courage to do that, not just with one person. It's not only, of course, we build our special relationships. That's a given, which is why, as I am sharing in this specific episode, one second, Let me go remind myself of this lovely title. The inner child adult who is open-hearted, spontaneous, whether they're mystic or not. They speak their truth with integrity. And so this is when what I shared in our messages is that, for example, my facade friend to this day doesn't speak with this level of integrity. You have to own your child parts. You have to own all of them, and they need to be asleep, because otherwise you're not the higher self, as I learned from my courses. And a person who is will know that you're a liar. So you don't have courage, because you're hiding from me. Your heart is hiding from me. As somatic empaths, we pick up on the nervous system. When you're pure consciousness, it's because you don't have any kind of insecurity. When you non-traumatized, and I mean, I know these words, and people think everyone is traumatized, not if you know how to work the depths of your emotional plane, because you don't have them charged. So I'm okay with crying. I'm okay with being angry. I'm okay with being afraid. Me. My body doesn't have shame. So people who don't know how to be okay with the depths of their emotions, that's why they think I pretend. They don't understand the depths of feelings, because they don't have the depth of their emotional plane. As long as you don't get out of your teenage response, which is where the good therapists, they were talking in my recent course with them, a webinar course, about what that question was asked, what do you do to keep yourselves grounded? And I found it funny, because I'm always grounded. I'm just always in Maria's body, but that makes sense because I was allowed to be Maria my entire life with the emotions. In fact, there's only one emotion, you all know that gave me a bit of a little bit of the fear. Fear is the one that I worked with one of my courses in the demo that my regular community knows about. And I knew why. So here's how sensations, images, affects, meanings, and behaviors work for a person who's non-traumatized, because she has a good relationship with emotions. Mystic, I'm going to bring it in because that is what I am. But if I don't have to, meaning science can explain it too. I have a good relationship with the embodied brain. From science's perspective, some studies show that there's like genes or DNA, like there could be a reason why some of us can have a bigger window of tolerance to emotions, to feeling deeply, and therefore we don't go offline. So I stay in my prefrontal cortex, okay? So I have the courage. I say I got a body that can feel. I got a child-centric environment. Okay, so I'm okay with being afraid and vulnerable. And then if somebody makes fun of me, I already knew teenagers. So I can still remember those teenage years in the very specific energetic imprint of what teenagers are like, because when you're getting a low self-esteem, Cusco attitude, that's all they are. They're a teenager with a bad attitude. No, they're unkind, bullies, but they all need a therapist. They all of the unkind, unlovable teenagers, and all of them who then grew up and grow up and continue to act like fools. That's why they make me think of fools. That's all I think is clowns and fools. Don't waste your time in any kind of romance with them, because they're not romantic. They're like not interesting men or women. They're Pinocchio on that island, and they're full of gender stereotypes. And that just makes me think of a bunch of couples that I was sitting with at one point in my journey. And I'm like, I'm so happy with my twin flames. Let it be. Let it be. Yeah. Because these people are asking each other for permission to go on vacation. And then the women are doing this, the men are doing that. And I'm like, well, what is this? Excuse me. Like, what are you doing? Okay, so when I meet anyone who's still a low frequency person who seems like they didn't grow up, I actively see Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and all their fairy tales. And that's why when they say 12 karat, yep, I know the men that are going to give them the 12 karat. It's unfortunate business, because like my facade friend. So some of them end up just staying with those relationships. I mean, arrogance, not seeing flaws, hinders growth, no limits to learn and improve, humility, awareness, growth. So again, we all have flaws. They can consistently stay and they won't go away, but we can have humility, awareness, and growth. My facade friend, he doesn't. To this day, like all the other adaptive child, they judge books by their cover. So when a person doesn't know how to be fearful, vulnerable, and grow and have true courage, they like to use a way to make others feel small and big. But if you don't know how to handle it with equanimity, you don't have the opportunity that you can have expanded. So I know how to be a person who's equanimous even as I'm having a Cusco do what they do, because I'm not actually playing a game. I've learned very well how ego will always be limited by those who are stupid enough to not notice that them leading somebody down the pathway that they want, of course I can go. They continue to think that we're fools, and that is why they are winning, if you will. And so they're not winning, they're not even triumphing. We got a person who's using their ancient history brain from a child. Okay, so this is unimpressive. Avoidance. It's key to see the need to avoid discomfort, but also to overcome it and thrive. Confrontation, progress. Okay, these are new cards. So let's just put it this way. You have the capacity to navigate all emotions within a window of tolerance. You don't want to avoid. You don't want to overwhelm. You want to find wholeness. You want to find your sweet spot. That's because you want to be in your prefrontal. Otherwise, you're just re-traumatizing yourself, which means you're not learning how to use your ventral energy. That's why people don't understand slow and steady wins the race, because that's how things work. Nothing grows overnight. Nothing's built overnight. The only people who don't understand how life works, 2 hands, 2 feet, are the same teenagers who live in La La Land and who continue to be enthralled with their addiction to that lustful small energy with their superhero supervillains. And that's why you have flat earthers, you have, the groups of mystics. And it's not to dismantle any of what they want to bring. No, they're actively in a group that says, like it's like when you go to high school and see all these kids. It's just, as you grow up, you're like, wow, they're not whole. Acceptance, inner peace, bringing together fragments that complete you. It's when you have the whole sense of self, wholeness, I know all about it, that you're like, wow. So you have self-compassion, self-love, and you have a growth mindset, and you build consistent resiliency. So embracing imperfections helps you find strength, yes. And then as you do understand that, of course, we're sensitive when we're not welcomed by our loved ones, our immediate, because it's, strangers don't mean much to people in general. It's when you hit home that you're going to be given the opportunity to, again, be generous of spirit. You're not surrendering in a way of divine counterparts, divine timing. That's all bullshit for the ego people that need to have. No thing goes to waste. So you have the capacity to know when life hits with the unknowns, uncertainties, unexpecteds, this seed doesn't break, whether you call it a whole self alone and that sense of self, or the soul spirit. So you have an emotional release. You're able to let go. That's not just like that. You calibrate the nervous system. You see what's taking place. Maybe you do some art. Okay? Maybe you go and talk about it, but you don't get defensive. You actually go and, hey, this is a healthy connection. I want to explore with curiosity what happened, and I'm going to use that relationship, and we get to confide in each other and grow. So those are those very beautiful relationships. So we are able to juggle the different aspects of yourself with they always use light and dark. I don't like to use it because everything comes from darkness, meaning your human secondary consciousness has consistently the unknown. Consistently, we don't enjoy knowing that we know, knowing that we feel, but really when you have no point, that's one of the things. If you need to find a meaning to live life, you're still working through becoming an experienced, I guess you could say, yogi. But I have to break it down to you in a way of being able to have a complete relationship with dark matter, dark energy, and not being in your mind in a spiral of, but then I'm meaningless. Yeah, you're meaningless, you're meaningful. Being able to sit with the known and the unknown. Being able to sit with spirituality and science and say neither of them has all the answers to anything. And bringing forth positive change, transformation of pain into strength, and empowering yourself. Pain, I don't prefer to, again, use these words because people get stuck on them. I'm strong because I have all the pain in the world. When you hit your toe, it's painful. Emotions, if they're still painful, then you want to use therapists so that you can begin to have not a hard time with thoughts and emotions. And then you might get into this ventral energy that we talk about here. So, and that's when you're ascending, evolving. That's when you're free. Now you're free because you are a flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable brain, as Dr. Daniel Siegel would say, because you're integrated. So when you have integration, no matter what kind of dead end you may have faced, no matter what village, what things from your home came around, you don't have an empty room. That went down there. You don't have an empty room. You have a room that's full of that which you're made of. Okay, so you know your castle. You know that lovely box of yours. And it's not a Pandora's box in a way of it being not necessarily good or bad, right? You hit that threshold. You can understand that everything comes from that implicit memory to the explicit. So the womb, facing the storm of that underworld, subconscious and conscious, and those cracks. Okay? And this is where, for this one, I want to read it to you, the Bardo, because this came out. And so the battle within, you are able to, thanks to the tower moments, like my friend, and those 3 archetypes of existence, right? We got the destroyer, the sustainer, and the other one is the creator, which I don't know where it is, but you are the one who gets to bring forth that which is your own healing, okay? Because you are a person who's using their child adult, your mind, your body, your brain, your heart, yourself. It's all yours, okay? So when you have inner conflict, you use it as inner growth opportunity. And so the aspect of the self getting expanded, as Patrick McNamara would say, decentralization of the self, which our ancestors have used to expand who they are. And if you had relentless cravings, addictions, that's where we already know those are the maladaptive patterns of behavior that people, with their will to want to get out of it, they will, and getting out of shame and guilt. So completely having self-understanding, acceptance, and compassion, using what words best support you in the moment of, okay, Dr. Daniel Fox says you fall back on some of those patterns. That's why you hang out with healthy, empowered, ventral energy people, because they're going to not be in the protective frequency little thing. No. So when you have your attitudes, they're not going to be reactive. So you're going to notice a difference, because you will have people who know healthy boundaries, and you'll know how to notice that. So assertiveness and self-care is not me saying you're trauma dumping. You know what? You're doing that shame thing. You're doing that. No, those are people who don't have healed inner child adults. They haven't shed the illusion of their own past self. Okay? So reality, honesty, self-love, but also love for others. This is awareness of self and awareness of others, and self-acceptance and acceptance of others. So when you have a person who will not be engaging with your maladaptive patterns of behavior and your adaptive child parts, so all that you got from a bad, unfortunately dysregulated, not child-centric environment, and so you're playing out what is an unpleasant, unnecessary bullying situation as a grown-up. It's called projecting, but it's also a karma wheel, because you have a pattern. It's when you can understand, okay, I'm going to stop using inner critic, outer critic. Okay, these cravings that I get, I've spotted my pattern. I know where they come from. Shame and guilt. I'm feeling shitty about myself, but I want to be able to create healthy boundaries with me and what I do, and how to get out of the illusion I'm not bad. I don't need anything to feel defective. I'm not defective. This comes from the beginning of my journey. And that's why those who are healing are to be looked at and said, this is such an honor to see them healing, because you can only imagine how hard it must be for them to keep working through those thoughts. And those thoughts are not pleasant, because they're feelings, first of all, that they're bad. From their first 3 years of life, I'm a bad, undeserving human being. The feelings are the shame cycle that the smart therapist tried to explain with the psych education, which I share with you all too, so you can stop engaging with anybody who is not welcoming of their own self in a way that they don't need you to do that. You don't need to shame anybody. That's not going to get them out of their trauma. It's not going to get them into ventral vagal. That's only for the people who continue to be, I'm a special energy. I am the special healer. I and our group of collect. So this is completely, it's not generous spirits. They're not standing like this lion. They don't know anything about Simba, do they? the nature is not brutal. No, it actually is balanced like all life. We have secondary consciousness, so us humans feel bad for those animals. Those animals know exactly what's going on. We're the ones who suffer because we can see what's happening, but we're not just seeing it. We're like, oh no, because we have personal ideas of what should happen. So the cats, dogs, they're all happily doing their thing. So breaking away from the chains of self-limiting beliefs. And any kind of limiting belief is definitely a mindset, self-realization that you can get with the authentic self. So breaking free from the adaptive child, rigid mind is what you want to do. And that's why you want to hang out with healthy, self-empowered, authentic people. And so unique individuals who are be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. So you get to be the authentic you with wholeness and duality, with inner balance. Meaning that you're not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but that you will persist to continue to expand to become that version of yourself that you want to bring into the world. And wholeness, once it's achieved, by the way, I know all about how it feels. You don't long for connection. You don't long for protection. You don't long for any of that which we see the 4D collective. You know that you're lucky to be alive, and with the people that you've surrounded yourself with, you are a grasshopper, so you take a leap of faith, and you know that it's always going to go well because you are now an empowered person. You have reclaimed that power and or never lost it. And our child adults are able to be fearless and bold the right way because we know equanimity, non-reactivity. So we don't act as if we're a chameleon. We are, because we're open to the infinite possibility of every person being able to become their inner child adult. We trust the great mystery of life, and we also know life is a mystery. And those of us who come with faith, we will have already learned about what integrity means. I learned from Jesus, God, Holy Spirit. And then as a mystic, I also learned how to weather the storm. There's no storm that doesn't become an adventure to an empowered feminine, because we are not stagnating in this dust devil, which isn't a devil of Lucifer. No, it's people with their body, mind, spirit, toxic, adaptive child habits and maladaptive patterns of behavior. The fancy lady and man in suit, they fit the bill, but they don't think so. Their choice is one that says, come be protective in your and anybody who doesn't want to take a deep dive in their own emotional plane to uncover their inner child and to transmute all that and to bring it to the surface, they're not going to fill their soul contract. They're going to stay a pause self. They will think of the use of power with that which is unforgiving, harsh, shaming tones, and we don't need to do anything because, again, we have the laws. Those of us who know what the right use of power is, we are the ones who have a beginner's mind, which is our 5D collective, because we are not only grace and generous, but we're all kings and queens, and we all can cross into that which is straddling between these two worlds called the left and the right. You put your left foot in and your right foot in and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. So the bridge of possibilities comes with the union of your thoughts and your emotions and you being able to consistently do what is transpersonal journey, expansion, and the wisdom that comes from your body, because your body is now yours with an open heart, right? So you have a nervous system that you regulate and you move into ventral vagal again and again and again. So you take the opportunity with all of those relationships to, that ego is vanishing, but it's still there. It's you. It's just you have a flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable brain. So you do get to tap into that divine matrix, but we don't talk about it as if it's something that needs dismantling. It's actually something that, when I look at this one intuitively, the heart chakra, the solar plexus, a little acorn that can become anything it wants to be. So that seed of life. And that's why all of you know what you're getting to bring. And in your relationships, you get to bring imagination, and so your music, your words, your creative expression, that which is a compassionate home. And so we build together a heart that is open, and that's what's fun about the universe having all of us in its hand and not needing to be afraid, and then supporting people who are afraid of their storms to notice how they can be adaptable. That's why inner growth mindset, mindfulness mindset practices help you. And then as a ventral energy, you support another to know, because they're going to be soothed. If they're open to welcoming all of themselves, then they're going to open and welcome that deep quiet. And they're going to keep sharing open-heartedly. And so you will learn forgiveness together. And you'll forgive veils and like my facade friend, I mean, we're still a duo, even though he's facade, because he didn't heal his mind. It doesn't matter. He brings to me what he is, and he's stagnating in that energy, because once somebody makes a choice, by the way, they're just going to be that personality. They are their identity, so it's not a bad thing. You still know them. They just don't know how to handle what is change from the adolescent essence and from an innocence that is a child that believes in their self and humanity, like this squirrel, and has a good time. They still have disowned parts, that's all. So they're just going to have, we don't have disowned parts. We have what is the truth, and that's your truth, but our truth, and that we can allow ourselves to support the earth every day. We have the opportunity. And here's where, with our lovely accept all, reject none, anima mundi, we bring to earth that which is the 5D frequency, and that's love. And open third eyes, because self-awareness, accountability, and taking ownership, right? That's why we speak a truth, we're confident, and we're curious. And we continue to expand together as we express all that we are to each other in each other's faces. And, wait a minute, here's to protecting the future. And it's an amazing way to end our episode. But we're going to be back to chit-chat some more. And that is because I have more to share on those lovely relationships. So romantically speaking, we have a good time with inner child adults, because they don't bring to us any of that lying stuff. In the meantime, we welcome our long-term relationships, both those that are enriching as well as those who don't know how to be whole selves, because when you reiterate healthy boundaries, they will learn to respect them, because it's either they respect or they say, no, I don't want to be friends with you. And when you're different from them and whatever their stuff is, they won't welcome you. So, you know, it's we've already had this in yesterday's news. We're going to keep having it. But as we grow older as a species, we're going to be more welcoming of differences, thanks to intelligence thriving, mental, emotional, physical. And that's because embodying restorative embodiment, ventral energy thrives. It's in a 5D frequency. It's in a you stress. So you're good stress. You're confident. You not only are energetic and vibrant as you wake up with an integrated brain and a restorative embodiment self, you're also an aware, accountable, regulating human being who can, in any situation, diffuse it. And because we are equanimous, when we meet, I'm not decent enough to be saluted, we know how to have a good time there too. And there you go. Aha. So here's the catch. Come back to our next episode to find out what this card says. If you want, you don't have to, but I'm going to pause this one and focus on this for our next episode. So thanks for stopping by.